The Arbour. I said in Gravity, quote, "During this time I would crawl around the floor on hands and knees. When my housemates found me worshipping the fire in the fireplace in the living room, they knew something was up. They took me to the local hospital where the staff worked until they convinced me to go to a mental hospital in an ambulance. I landed at the Arbour in Jamaica Plain for 12 days, but that's another story." End quote. This essay is the story of my 12 days at the Arbour in 1986. I was lying on the floor of the living room, naked, worshipping Agni, the god of fire, facing the fire in the fireplace. It was early April and still pretty chilly outside, though no snow. I was confused that my housemates thought there was something wrong with me and wanted to take me to the hospital. It took them a while to convince me. But I finally got dressed and went with them the half-mile from the house to the local hospital emergency room, ER. At the ER, after I told them that I hadn't eaten or slept for a week, they wanted me to go to a mental hospital. I didn't understand why, but I finally let them convince me. Signed forms, bid adieu to my housemates, and stepped into the back of an ambulance. It was a fairly short drive to the Arbour Hospital in Jamaica Plain, south of Boston. It would probably take about an hour on a bicycle. I lived close to there from 1987 to 1991, so I rode it a number of times. When I got there, the ambulance people led me from the car into a door of the locked unit, closed and locked the outside door, and left me there. I made a peanut butter sandwich. It was yummy. Over the next few days, the staff tried to get me to sleep, going so far as to prevent me from leaving a sleeping room. It took a while, but I finally did sleep, and my eating normalized. The hot food that they served there tasted glorious, like food does when you go camping outdoors. I witnessed some high schoolers plan and execute a breakout from the locked ward. They appeared to be there because their parents couldn't take care of them, so gave them to the hospital. I met a 17-year-old woman of whom I was very fond, but jailbait. They were feeding me Haldol Cogentin to ease some of the side effects of the Haldol and lithium. Haldol is an antipsychotic drug. It basically shuts down the thinking in your brain. I could remember nothing. I wrote down what I needed to remember on a piece of paper. Lithium is a mood stabilizer. It makes your moods flat. I learned that the art therapists were the only sane people in the hospital. The patients were there because they were insane, but the doctors and nurses were also all crazy. The art therapists were cool though, so I paid attention to them. But the only person who could get me out of the hospital was my doctor, so I focused on convincing him to do that, even though he was crazy. A handful of people from work visited me. I could tell they were real friends. I greatly appreciated their presence. I eventually convinced the doctor and they let me out about 12 days after I was admitted. My blood level of lithium was still not as high as they wanted. They told me to keep taking it. I stopped. I had learned by then that my manic-depressive mood swings, which I had been having since 1984, were controllable by just not getting too manic, which I can control. If I let myself get too manic, then the depressive swing is pretty much guaranteed, and the only way out of that is time. I have a rule to never manifest any ideation that comes out of a depressed mood. That, and the belief in reincarnation, has kept me alive. It's now 36 years later, and I'm getting happier and happier. Quote, "If you're not getting happier as you grow older, you're fucking up," end quote, by Annie DeFranco in her song, "If You're Not."